little slow on the draw getting the music started, but this is Write Once, Read Many. And we're covering chapter 29.8. Vic has shown up. Hello. It's probably the only person we're going to get in the audience, so I don't think we have to worry about waiting for anybody else. I didn't make an audience participation question for this week. I just still didn't get to it, despite the long gap from the previous stream to this one. But yes, I have sort of hopefully a stable stream setup that won't crash midway through, like the one that I had previously. And I'm hoping to return to a much more frequent schedule. Anyway, I did write something in the themes section. I thought that there's a sort of theme from the Eden, like the dead corpse of Eden, the second entity, character design. It leaves behind this weird landscape of flesh, and then the effect of the power that created it was so effective that Taylor sees it as inherently non-threatening, despite being like a weird fractal blob of human and alien parts. And the fact that Taylor is under extreme duress, both from having her arm crushed by Sveta, and then also by having Scion coming into the mix. She's still like, wow, look at this non-threatening flesh blob. It's just, yeah. And then we know that this is like an intentional thing that the entities use, because during the we can colloquially call them the worms that the worms use. Back during the Behemoth fight in Arc 24, Tattletale went out of her way to tell Taylor that the Endbringer bodies, that they were crafted intentionally to evoke, like, not only fear, but I feel like specific ideas between each Endbringer. Like, Behemoth was kind of slow because he wanted to be slow. Like, yeah, Leviathan's really fast, but Behemoth proved several times that if he wanted to, he could just quickly move instead of doing what he did normally, lumbering around and such. So they try and evoke specific ideas and interactions with the humans they're dealing with. I mean, especially the Seamerg, I'm sure. This is just like another aspect of that. So, you know what? Getting into it. The chapter starts out. Taylor is so blown away by the view and the vision of this new chamber, seeing like essentially the artwork you're seeing there. And like, wow, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. I'm in awe. And then she like compares. She says, or she thinks, he was so small, so far away. The partner so massive. And so she's just completely blown away by these sights, and then it takes her like several paragraphs of telling us what it looks like to be like, oh yeah, I forgot. My arm is destroyed by Sveta tendrils, and I'm glad that my costume's so good so that my arm isn't completely gone, but it's not gonna ever work again. And so it's kind of a disaster for Taylor right now. And then Sveta like slinks off of her and convinces herself to calm down, but like her doing that requires Taylor to be like perfectly quiet and perfectly still. And then like Sveta just essentially talks her way out of she convinces herself that um that nothing's wrong and that she can relax. I don't know that she convinces herself of that, but you know what I mean. She spends time to actively relax herself and not super kill Taylor. Vic says, Taylor is so mean to Sveta in her head. Yeah, that's true. She's just like, whatever your problem is, Sveta, you need to get over it. But she's just thinking that and not saying it. So, but I mean, I kind of get it. Taylor's in a like ultra adrenaline state of like completely destroyed arm girl. So, I'm sure I would be out of sorts if I was as the Taylor of this moment. She even thinks to herself that she's being uncharitable. So she's doing her best. But then Sveta like convinces herself not to super kill Taylor and then to leave, and then she goes into the next chamber, like the super open like Eden. I'm gonna call it like the Eden chamber, because like we know just from like context clues and things that Wildbow had planted in like the character tags and stuff that the second entity is called Eden, and that's just not a mouthful to say. So in this Eden room, Sveta has enough space to stretch out and to not have to gravitate toward people. And then Taylor thinks to be a bystander in your own body, which might not be the worst comment on its own, but we know Taylor has this weird bully victim bystander like trichotomy thing going on, where she has this bizarro mindset, and then now she's pitying Taylor or Sveta for the lack of control overall. So yeah, it is pretty mean in her head, admittedly. Anyway, so Sveta gets the hell out of there, and once she's gone, then Taylor is like, okay, I'm in so much pain that I can't really like move around like normal. And so she just immediately starts flight packing. It's a good thing that she's got like the most, I don't know. She's like one of the most grittiest parahumans in terms of like using her power through any circumstances, and she's able to like perfectly pilot uh, her flight pack with her bug senses, even though her body is like unusable. Um, and so yeah, she's floating around, and she is still using her body to kick off rubble, to like launch herself forward to a certain degree. Um, and she's like looking around this giant, uh, like huge room they're in. She can feel like a few of the close walls, but then it extends too far back for her power. And as we may recall from the beginning of the book, her power starts at like 3 blocks radius and then goes out to like 5 when she's stressed. So this is a colossal room. Um, and then she's scouting out the room, like the ceiling and stuff that she can get to as she gets to it, and she's like finding that there's all these structural problems and that the room is collapsing. Um, there's a um, I don't know. There's a funny moment where uh, she just says, like in her head, ominous. Just single word paragraph. But anyway, so she's sensing all these things going on, and then she's assessing the damage to her arm, and this is where we get the information like confirming it's real bad. Um, uh, uh, or actually, no, sorry. This is where we see the doctor's body that was also real bad. That confirming that the doctor is not gonna secretly come back like Palpatine. Uh, the doctor is gone. Um, and then let's see here. Doot 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 doot. Um, so yeah, moving around the room with her flight pack, then she finds that Golem is like working with Cuff to. I guess it just says Golem, but I feel like Cuff would also be able to help shore up the structure and um, like make barriers for them to hide under. So it's Golem, Cuff, and Imp together, and then Rachel has like Canary's body. So we don't hear a lot about Canary in this scene, but it's because Canary is like just slung over one of the dogs. Um, uh, and then they're all scrambling to get around the room. Lung is there too. They're all like running over this like what is described as a labyrinth of pale gray flesh. So then you've got the Number Man and Alexandria Pretender and the like Harbinger boys, um, and I they're traveling along with the wounded Case 53s in another group. So there's a whole bunch of them in here running about like doing their thing, but they're not all together. Um, Taylor is like openly admitting to herself that she's feeling like panic, and she's not used to being like this, like far gone, and she's getting distracted by like how injured she is. um, but she's like also reflecting negatively, like, why had I touched Sveta and set off her tendrils to grab me. I'm such an idiot. And then, she hadn't known that Sveta would be able to save her. I didn't even mention it because it happened so quick, but as they enter the room, Sveta kind of slings herself in a way that saves Taylor from just crunching on the floor. She flings them out of the way from Scion, and then also latches around and breaks them without sending her flying. So they were both pivotal to each other's survival. Anyway, Taylor's getting distracted by the landscape, and she's trying to fly over it without getting hit by any falling rubble or anything. And it's dark in here, I think, to some extent. So, or the landscape is so weird that she can't always tell when something new is close or far away. She says there's a fractal nature to it. I think that there's minor four-dimensionality in terms of when she's moving around, there's slightly more or less of the entity in the space near her. They don't really get into it here, but the reason I think it's possible is because of something really similar that happens in Ward. Where it's as you move closer to a thing, it gets more complex in a certain scene. Anyway, I'm getting distracted and with tangents. So, Taylor is meeting up with, she's trying to meet up with Rachel and such. She's following through, and she's, with bugs, following the progress of everybody, just like in all the chapters. And, she has this idea that, she realizes that when Tattletale was trying to explain to her the well of Scion's power and the well of his physical body springing forth more flesh, that this was the well, and that this is the second entity's version of that. And so it's dawning on her how massive Scion is to see this. But it's only the first time it happens to her, because later on she realizes, I think more fully, that it's connecting through to other realities. So it's in parallel worlds. So this is just one facet of the massive flesh beast thing that is the Scion adjacent second entity body. Anyway, Tattletale had called Scion the tip of the iceberg, but that's really an understatement. Vic says, yeah, it was real hard to conceptualize. Well, yeah, I was actually, okay, when I was thinking of an audience participation question, and I just kind of felt dumb, writing this into the Discord, but it's I wanted to ask people if they, thought this scene worked. I do, and I think, I understand it, and it's because of Taylor's slow, dawning understanding over multiple, segments where she, learns each bit, and she's already had the groundwork laid by Tattletale in these other chapters. I think that's why it worked for me, because there had been so much runway up to this point, and then we're seeing it in action, and then we see the new part of it in action later in the chapter. So it really works for me, but I could see it falling flat if someone is confused by the chapter or something. Um, but I thought the opening description was like really solid. Like she describes it as being like a volcano eruption of like human parts and stuff, and how everything is um like adjusted just so that it's non-threatening and that it's like even inviting. I felt like uh but it's just like the complete counterpart, like the thinker and the warrior thing that we saw play out in that flashback chapter where we saw the future vision of the entity that died. um I guess maybe what we saw was like the shared vision it sent over to the Scion entity. I don't know. It's not that important. We get it. Um it's trying to evoke something specific and have like just the way they describe Dragon as well as being like this completely nondescript woman, and like it uses this like the balance formula that makes Oliver like just generic hot guy. It's like there's different parts of the powers that want to present themselves different ways. Um, yeah, uh, to maximize whatever their other, aims are. But yeah, so and this is also when Taylor like outright realizes something that we could have possibly inferred from previous stuff. Um Taylor says, "I thought about or thinks I thought about what Cauldron had said about having already saved the world. They fought this thing before and they beat it." Um and then the collapse is stopping for a bit, so they have sort of time to group up, and Taylor could have landed with Rachel, but instead she lands with Lung, and she reaches out to him with her bugs and her voice. She's very quiet right now because of her body being in like shock. Um, and then Lung ominously looms over her like he's going to kill her finally. Like this is the moment. And then all Taylor can do is manage to breathe out an ah, and Lung says, "I have no reason to help you." And it says that his words are more difficult to hear because he's in a like fairly transformed state. He's very dragon at this moment. Um, and she can't even muster any response before he starts going into a. I guess I'm just going to read this instead of describing it. "I think you have lost a lot of blood. You will slip into a state of shock, Skitter. Your body will betray you. You will piss and shit yourself. Your emotions will escape your control, and you will experience a kind of terror that you might think is not possible." And, to this, Taylor grits her teeth, all annoyed, because she's just like, "I can't believe I'm gonna die with like a supervillain monologuing at me." And Lung's explaining his like, "Oh, I'll never be a follower. I'll always maintain a territory and bring my enemies low. I am feared and respected always." And I mean, he's just like, it's just like he's going on and on. And then he's like telling her, "A man told me that in Go, it is deemed more worthy, more honorable, more respectable if you can accept the fight as lost and surrender. If you are right, it is. If it is at the right moment, I came with you because I knew I would not beat him in another fight. Here, there is something I can do, but I do not follow you. I do not give up that control. I would say partners, but I would be lying. Um, and Taylor just like um, she like tries to be as defiant as possible, meeting his eye, getting Defiant's knife even, um, and she actually like lets go of the knife though, and she reaches over her arm, and it's all fucked up. It's just flopping around. Apparently the bones were pulverized in the destructive force of Sveta. So that's a disaster. And then Lung grips her ultra injured destroyed arm, and he he continues to like just talk at her about why he fights Scion or doesn't, and what he's like how he's not gonna work with someone who's weak like her now that she's dying. Um, and then Taylor thinks about how this is like Grey Boy turning on Jack when Jack showed weakness. And then Rachel asks if she should intervene. She's still kind of far away, and Taylor actually puts a bug X between them. She's like, I gotta handle this myself. And then Lung is, he's stating that she came to him and not the others. And then if she asks him, he's telling her to ask him for assistance, and like once she shows weakness, he's gonna kill her. And so instead, she Vic wrote beg for it, but it's not even it. It's like he wants her to beg so he can kill her. Vic says this scene is a lot long. Yeah, so then Taylor says, I'll kill you. She gasps out. She does like now that I've seen Vinland Saga, I'm like, okay, this is like Thorfinn like peak moment where he's just like the most deadest he's ever been, and he's still like, I'll kill you. And so then that doesn't exactly work, but it does give him pause. He merely strengthens his squeeze on her arm instead of killing her off. And then he says, with a trick, deception, by asking for help. And then she shakes her head. He indicates the like defiant knife, and he's like, with this? And she shakes her head no. And then she's like, oh no, I'm like passing out from just shaking my head. And then she's like trying to hold eye contact with him, but she's like slooping around the room, and then she manages to tell him, burn it if you're angry. And then he's like, angry, and then she's like, beating you twice, then enjoy burning me, but fucking burn it off. And then there's a long pause, and then he burns up her arm, and she passes out, and she's like, I think like a minute went by based on how much people have moved around and stuff. And like I know this is a few years later from the early book stuff. This is 2 years down the line, but it's like kind of funny how like well she managed to track like the most chaotic scene ever like in her future state, rather than like before where she'd be like, I couldn't tell how much time was passing. It could have been 30 seconds or 2 minutes. And she's just like completely like unable to do that. And now she's just like, yeah, I can do that in my literal like unconscious state. But With the page break, we go down, and she is on a dog back, along with Canary on the same dog, and her whole body hurts, uh, just from the like overall like chemical shock of having your arm burned off. Um, just just her body's going haywire, and she can't get herself to like sit upright or anything. Um, she like feels out to her bug swarm, and she's realizing that she's got a limited supply. She said, I had only a few thousand now." Um, and then you know um they sort of are linking up with the people they can. Some of the I think that the case 53s ran, but it's unclear to where or from like what their goal would be. um but the all the stairwell is collapsed. They could perhaps like dig straight up depending on what powers were in their group, but Taylor gets her swarm together and starts commanding the group again. Like she's mostly dead and she's still in charge. Um, Only Rachel and Lung can hear her at first. And then she confirms to Rachel that Lung burned her arm because she told him to. Um, and then she says that there's another stairwell. Uh, and then they sort of gather their forces, and then uh, Taylor thinks this is what Scion looks like when we see beyond the image on the surface. This is the sheer amount of flesh we need to destroy when we do manage to get past his defenses. So this is like a rule of threes thing, I suppose, too, because like this is the second time she's thought about it, but she hasn't had the turn yet where she really comprehends it. Um, um, and then Taylor does consider the possibility here, like where is the other body's like Scion type, like singular body. Um, and then the Number Man joins their group with Golem and stuff, and uh, Golem realizes he says, "Holy shit, Weaver, your hand!" Um, and then she thinks he said it like I wasn't aware. Uh, she finds Scion with her swarm. Um, and then this is where Scion is with the other, like the Eden direct body thing. Um, and then this body still fractals out into parallel universes. And this is when Taylor goes, two things hit me at the same time. One of those things was that the odd pattern-like kaleidoscopes of flesh and whatever else weren't terminus points, but points where the limbs passed into another dimension. The well was far deeper than I'd thought. There was so much more to the entities than we were seeing here. The other thought that this was the other body. It was the second entity's body. The part he would have shown us. She says he, but we know from flashbacks that she would have presented herself as a feminine counterpart to Scion. And then you know, Taylor states to the group that she's found the sort of counterpart that was being put together. Golem says they had seen it, and then they got signaled by Number Man to group up. And then, they have Alexandria in their group as well. And they're working together to move Taylor around so that she's, because she can't, well, I mean, they see her as not being able to move herself, but then she starts flight packing around again. And then Imp is like, I kind of see the doctor's point about abstract solutions now. Taylor's like, the plan is to scram. She doesn't say it like that, but Imp jokes that they work so hard to get here, so it's madness to leave. But Taylor is not sensing jokes at this moment or any moment. And she explains herself fully to the group to be like, we got to get the hell out of here, guys. She says, we came for answers. This is it. We had answers. Now we just needed to get to a position where we could use them. Get them to Tattletale, to other thinkers. And then they need to use this moment while Scion is occupied focusing on the counterpart body. And this is where Taylor realizes another thing. Like, I kind of love this chapter because, like, looking back on it, it's so, like, it's got so much information in it, but, like, somehow my mind, like, backfills this really well to make it feel like I've always known all these things, like, of course this is how it would, because, I don't know, it just, like, is perfectly, like, clockwork. He uses the future sight to look for this realm where he finds the like, counterpart, but the counterpart is still already dead, and now he's too far in the future to effectuate what he needed for his actual goal or whatever. Like, if there was a way to bring the counterpart back to life or something. I don't know, to do anything else. But I think it's seeding this idea to Taylor, like there is a way to beat the Contessa-like future sight, even for Scion's improved version of it that's not slightly damaged and unable to, like, work against him. And it's to, like, get him to pick another outcome that is unfavorable to him, but that seems like the only option that makes sense at the time. So, like, a lot's going on in this chapter, and that's why I kind of yada-yada'd past the flesh, like, details about, like, the volcanic stuff, is because, like, that's all really good, and I think that writing is great, but, like, the things that I don't want people to miss are, like, Taylor's various revelations. Like, oh my god, this is, like, super plot relevant. Like, her just doing that over and over again. So the number man's like, it's gonna be difficult to get out of here, even if there are other stairwells, because the like, room we're in is descending into the ground in a spiral pattern, because it's this original Cauldron panic room that they made before they even had their number man on their crew, so he didn't have, like, a way to, like, be like, there's a better way, guys. He admits that at the time, if they thought they'd have to lock themselves in here, they didn't think they'd ever be leaving, kind of thing. One-way journey into the panic room. It's a one-time use panic room. That has like an immense, unfathomable being inside. Anyway, so then Golem suggests taking part of this with them so that they could like try to use Chevalier's power like they did with Behemoth and Seamark parts, to make his like armor and weapon. And then the Numberman confirms that this is just regular human flesh. It's not like actually going to like be usable in that way. The Numberman sort of confesses that he was only very recently made aware that this existed. So, and when he says the doctor played things close to the vest, he's not lying. This is like, it must have been like she knew, and Contessa knew, and like, is that it? She didn't tell the Numberman. It's crazy. I mean, I know he used to be in like the Slaughterhouse-9, but he was also like so core to all their other operations. She just kept everything so celled off that even the people who seemed like they were inner circle were just in their own lane, kind of. I don't know. Until the very end when she had to consolidate. Imp calls the being Fuckster right here as a joke, as a name. So a lot of people just insist on referring to this thing as Fuckster. But it really just, I don't know. Saying Eden just kind of works better when you're describing like a book rather than Fuckster. But, you know. So Golem is the one who's like, this isn't even a living being. It feels like a weird place, a garden or something. And it's like, funny that you should use such imagery, Numberman says, seeing as we learned from Lizette that the thing that the readers learned in the like chapter where we learn about Scion secretly being Zion, and I don't dislike this part, but having gone over it a few times, like today, to think about this chapter, it's a little too like, ooh hoo hoo, Golem thought of the exact right thing to say. Yeah, it's one of the very few times like where it jumps out at me like, oh, it's a little convenient. But anyway, so Scion at this point cuts off their conversation because he's like killing the other entity, like the actual human shape counterpart. And Taylor says this. She says he's killing it with bugs. She's all bug speak now. And then the Numberman states that it's already dead, and she says he's killing it deader. And then the Numberman's like, I'll allow it. He says, granted. And then he starts describing it more. There's like, this place has veins of power that run through portions of like the flesh, like ore in a mountain or whatever. And but once Scion like grips the corpse of like the counterpart, and then like moves like more than a little bit, like he already grabbed its throat and crushed it, but when he moves up into the air and is like dragging it with him, the entire landscape moves in response, in like a kaleidoscopic, um like it was a 4D being and now it's in a different position, so the side, like air quotes side, that's projecting at you of the four-dimensional object is a different three-dimensional object. um and it all gets sort of like dragged in terms of like the superstructure of it is getting dragged in, even though the parts are changing of the actual, like, you know, place to place structure. I don't know. I'm wish I had thought out exactly how I'd describe this earlier, but um she describes it as like parts being pulled into invisible mouse holes and portals pulled out of others. And then this really throws off the Number Man, I think. He just says, "Fuck!" Which I don't think we've seen the Number Man do that sort of thing, but probably like his power went into way too big overdrive and it's disadvantageous to them at the same time. But the structure around them, like the actual concrete room that is not a flesh pile, is going to collapse in from above them. And he talks about it, and he says like 1,730,000 tons of steel are going to drop on our heads. And maybe this number was random, maybe this number was on purpose, but when I read that, my brain said, this story is a very similar number of words to that number of tons of steel that come dropping down on our heads when the walls break. I just found that interesting. I don't know. A lot of the characters are stand-ins for like literary concepts or tools that Wildbow is using to like move the story forward. Like Tattletale is exposition, like that's what her power is. Aisha is like the space between the lines kind of thing. Behemoth is like a major cataclysm to break up stasis. I remember there's like Leviathan's like kind of represents forcing areas to be discarded and retreated. I can't remember all the details, but people have really like thought about this a lot and broken it down. And but I was personally seeing this as a moment where Number Man represents the Wildbow instinct to be like, okay, well, let's really break down these numbers here. Like he'll do fractions of things all the time. He loves number manning around in the story as an author, I think. And that's why I think this might be a similar case. Anyway, Golem is Golem is like searching for solutions, asking if they can leave out the sides of the thing, the weird like descending chamber they're in, and just go into the earth there. But apparently they would be obliterated by pressurized water. That is like how the corkscrewy thing is keeping from like grinding on the sides. It's like in corkscrew of pressurized water. This is one like silly contraption of like they must have come up with it with Contessa's power. Like, what's the safest thing that we can do that would like protect us from the most number of threats? And then the like Contessa power is like, I don't know, make a one-way panic room that you can never get out of like a crazy person. So like that's also funny in a way. Um. Bup, 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 bup. And then uh boop 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 boop. Taylor takes a few moments to be like, "I'm dying." And then she's like, "Can the Siberian protect us all?" And then the Siberian's like, "I can only protect a little bit of stuff. Like 5 people probably if we put people on me." And then uh so Scion's still like moving about, and it's now causing the ceiling to arc and crack and collapse. And then Taylor's calling it out. They use Golem's power and Alexandria to at the last minute like stop things from crushing them. And then Taylor's like kind of walls are closing in thinking. And uh then Golem is leading Cuff on a plan. He wants to um like kind of get a big giant piece of metal to I think this is where they're crafting the pod that they get into and use the Siberian power to wait out collapse in. And then Taylor's like, I was left with nothing to do. I was with the injured Case 53s and unconscious Canary, um, who apparently had a hand crushed. I'm saying apparently, and so is Taylor. And then Rachel and Imp are also with her because they don't have like a lot to contribute to the like, they're not construction capes. And they stare up at Scion. And then he's like burning the like uh he's burning with his golden light through the whole body of the other entity. And this like radiates an emotion from Scion that the capes can feel. um uh I'm gonna read this bit. He was lashing out, destroying the remains, out of bewilderment, sadness, despair, anger, confusion, all of it unfiltered, the same emotion a child might experience with their first loss, what a child would feel when they lost something irretrievable for the first time, when something was stolen from them and they hadn't prepared themselves for the possibility on any level. Um, and then she compares it to several things: losing a dog, home, or their innocence. And then she says their mother as its own thing. And then Rachel says it's like when I lost Rollo, Brutus, or Judas. And then Taylor goes, yeah. And then Aisha says, when my bro, and trails off. And then Taylor thinks to herself, when he was broken, when his personality changed. What? How do you articulate that? So she has an explanation in her mind, but I know it's not confirmed in the text yet. But I feel like I can speak in the medium spoilers way that I do, that they've all been lying to Taylor about Gru being like having retired as a cape. He has in fact died, and Imp has been covering for her sadness with extra impishness over the past whatever. And she's been trying to hold strong and not tell Taylor because they kind of see Taylor as like too important to throw off track by telling her that Gru is dead. So Aisha and Rachel and Lisa are all in on it, and they're not telling her. Um, and other people either don't know or don't know that Taylor doesn't know. But either way, the 3 ladies, the remaining Undersiders, are all in on the Shelter Taylor's emotion plan, which is probably necessary. It's like one of those things where a lot of bad stuff happens in this book, and like kind of underhanded things, but like, you know, Brian's sister was one of the ones to make the call that she didn't think they should tell Taylor. So, you know, there's a clear direness to the decision to a certain degree, if even she was like on board. But yeah, but Imp hopes that this feeling that they are feeling from Scion that's being radiated to them sucks for him to feel, that it's very awful. Vic says, honestly, Taylor would be so crazy about it. Yeah, well, that's the thing, is like, I'm not saying it's like strictly the principled ethical thing to do. I don't know about in some moral framework, whatever, but I think it's one of those on balance decisions. This is a crisis situation, and they gotta do what they gotta do to keep Taylor's head in the game, as they would say in High School Musical. You know, it's the only place where people keep their head in the game ever, as we all know. But yeah, they've still got the whole crew here together. Even seemingly all the Case 53s are with Canary, and then boop boop boop. They're creating this barrier that they can all sit in to ride out the storm of when the roof collapses, and then you know, Golem's checking with the Siberian that they can actually use the power on an object this large and use the invincibility to ride out the storm. And the Number Man says yes. So this is when Aisha sort of comments to Taylor, usually it's you with these plans. So Golem has really, like, Golem is Taylor's protege, more than anyone else. So Golem does a Taylor plan, makes sense to me. And then Rachel, you know, in a move that would be like unthinkable at the beginning of the book, the long since character arced Rachel says she's hurt, as an excuse for Taylor why she can't, you know, be the plan master. Their bond is so strong that Rachel makes a 2-word excuse for her. Incredible. And then Taylor's focused on, like, she, like, can't get her mind off how she wants to, like, damage Scion more than she wants to survive. She's, like, in a total, you know, she's in a right state, as they say. And if we remind ourselves, in the previous chapter, she, like, used the Defiant Nanothorn knife to, like, slash at his throat and, like, cause a bunch of damage to him. And he didn't even kill her. He just sort of shoved her over. But anyway, getting back to what's happening, she's, like, trying to come up with a plan, some way to hurt Scion right now, and Scion's kind of flipping out. He starts destroying sections of the body, and the ceiling is kind of falling, and then Taylor is like, I think I have something, and she's, like, telling them what the plan is. She confers with, you know, we're updated, like, how the construction is going on their little safety pod, and then she talks to Number Man and explains that she wants a controlled demolition, and they can use Alexandria, and they can bring in Sveta to the mix, and then they can uh, collapse everything on Scion at the same time. And then Taylor communicates with Sveta and diplomacies her way in. They both thank each other for saving each other. They're like, this was nice. Um, uh, but well, I mean, I guess Taylor. I don't know if Taylor thanks her, but it's as close as Taylor could possibly come to thanking someone. Taylor's so cold. Um, but Sveta does directly thank her, and uh, she like tells Sveta like, we're gonna do this controlled collapse, and then I'm gonna show you the way to move up through the ceiling to escape. And so when they go into action in a minute, Sveta will get out of here, even though she's totally not with their overall group at the moment. Um, and they get things moving. They get the plan set up. They control demolition. Um, and then finally, Sveta does what the actual plan was of Taylor, which is not for her to pull down pieces of rubble or whatever. It was to pick up a bunch of like corpse pieces from the Eden Garden and just like huck endless waves of corpse pieces at Scion, and then like bail. I guess endless is not a great way to describe it when you're only doing it for a few seconds, but just huck as many corpse pieces at him as possible. And it's not to physically hurt him at all, but it's to psychologically fuck with him, because like this area throws off his future sight because it's so laced with the second entity, which he can't like future sight as well. Like that's the whole reason that the Case 53s like throw off his senses, and that Cauldron Capes do as well, because it's like they're little pieces of this other entity rather than his own pieces. He's not able to like they describe it as like throwing him off with the wrong scent trails, but it's just some complex mechanism is partially blocked in his like future sight, and other awarenesses. But yeah, they shock him by doing something that's really heinous. Taylor's like, I know how to bully people. It's my main skill. And then Sveta escapes upward. And then they set off the controlled demolition with Alexandria. Then Alexandria bolts down to them, and I think, and gets into the like protection pod. Maybe Alexandria doesn't join them. I guess she doesn't need to because the body's indestructible. Uh. Yeah. They have the thing set up, and then Alexandria's outside alone. And the way that Taylor keeps track of her is because they had popped a fly into her mouth, which initially, Pretender had thought she was like fucking with him in some way, and she's like, "Nope, I'm being serious. Put this fly in your mouth, damn it." But yeah. Then the giant chunk, the 1.7 million ton chunk, falls onto Scion. He's hit with a whole story of words, and it still doesn't defeat him. It wasn't enough. It was a start, but it wasn't enough. And then when they ask Taylor if she's okay, she's like, "Fuck me, that was satisfying," like a little freak. Uh, but then when Lung is unimpressed, Imp mocks him, and then they Golem says that Scion is the only effect they had on him really is that he's pissed off now. And then Taylor's like, "Oh no, him being pissed off is good. We can use that." And then the number man asks if she has a solution already, and she's like, "No, we need to get to the hospital, but we'll come up with a solution. It'll be fine, guys. It'll be fine." And yeah, that's the end of the chapter. I think it's really good. I think the moment to moment descriptions are really evocative. I guess I'll go back to part of the thing that I really glossed over at the beginning. It's like the room looked like an aircraft hangar. My bugs reached out, and I could only sense the 3 walls closest to me. Vast. The partner filled the space, beautiful in a way I struggled to put words to. It was like a volcano mid-eruption, stone mingled with the orange-red magma, spray or smoke reaching incredible heights. It was breathtaking in the sheer elemental nature of it, fascinating, beautiful, and so incomprehensible I couldn't have understood it with decades of study. But where the volcano was driven by seismic movements, I was pretty sure, and the storm by wind, this was driven by something else, just as basic on a level. An idea, half formed, captured in a moment. Yeah, and then this is where it describes like the passivity and the like sort of inviting nature of it. Yeah, really great descriptions, really cool setting detail, really fits with what we'd expect based on what we've seen other powers do and like riff off of this. And then like I said, there's that like 3 beat about like learning that it's not just this is like one small aspect of a much larger multi parallel world like spanning being. And so they are only now confronting the scale of the problem, except Tattletale, who is like, "I get it." And also kind of Amy, who's like, "I have seen the powers and I am shocked." Especially when she touched Glass de Guenier and saw her power. And I guess kind of March, because of things that get explained in Ward, March Hare has a sort of an inkling of the scope of their enemy. But March is not meaningfully involved in the remaining events of Worm, so I guess that doesn't matter. Yeah, I thought this chapter was just great. All these things we learned, the like character moments, Taylor. You know, I have to go back. I didn't read out the line, but there's a line that's like been one of. Okay, yeah. This is one of my favorite little sections in the whole book. I used my flight pack, lifting myself into the air. My legs dangled, and I lacked the strength to keep my head fully raised. My hair hung in front of my face. Whatever. Right now, at least, my body was an inconvenient puppet, a vehicle for my power and my brain, nothing else. Oh, I can't believe it. Alien Cat Daddy CGS is here once again. Says last two arcs are all times. Yeah, they are. They are all timers. Um, Alien says, "Damn, she seems like she was ready." Yeah, yeah. Like especially looking back on this and like reading that line, it's like I know Taylor's like the grittiest, hardest, person in the story. Basically, like I guess maybe not entirely, but you get it. That she's like up there in terms of like pushing through really anything and like finding a way to like force herself through something. But this is pretty like end of the line thinking. Um, like this is my last scene. But yeah. So yeah, I kind of love that chapter. I think it's great that Taylor actually touches base with Sveta and that they don't just it's not just ambiguous what happened. Like Sveta thanks her and they not only like give her a way out but also like work together another time. So yeah. Oh, Alien says, when I get to this part of the story, I always look back at Arc 25. Such an insane inverse. Oh, in terms of like Taylor's like fatalism or sorry, which part's the inverse? Well, I don't even know if I would say she's like kind of she's ready to do anything, but she's willing to push through to survive. Oh, Alien says with those kids. Oh, yes, yes. Her talking to Sveta like this is like her building a future with the kids in the the um the in the walkout kind of. Right, right. In arc 20. Sorry. Now I get what you're saying. I totally get what you're saying. In arc 20 when she leads the walkout that she escapes in a mass crowd of students, that this is sort of like that where she just diplomacies her way into because she really, as much shit as everybody gives Taylor, she really is very good intentioned. She's really, really trying, and I think that matters in such a difficult setting. Oh, Alien says it's a similar inverse to Arc 30, I think. Yeah, no, you are right. You are right. It is an inverse to what's to come, which I don't want to get into too much until we're actually like on those chapters, in case anyone ever makes the foolhardy decision to listen to this on their first read through. I I don't know if I would ever condone that. But anyway, uh yeah, but yeah, those moments with Sveta are great. As for arc stuff, this is like a pivotal battle. This is like when things really come to a head, both in terms of like physical violence, emotional warfare against Scion, and like as dire as some of the other, like, oh no, we're trapped and there's a bazillion like case 53s with really good powers, and then this feels more dire. I mean, it's dang old Scion. So it really is ramping up the tension, and then you know, they just make so many revelations that it's fulfilling that kind of narrative purpose as well. And like, oh man, the Taylor moments that we get in this of like the combination of last chapter, her losing that hand and being like, I can't believe it happened again. I just got that hand. And then this chapter being like, now the whole arm's gone. Anyway. And yeah, it's just bringing Taylor to this really like low point where she you know, sometimes she has like a reset where she basically doesn't have any damage left to her body, like in arc 28 when she comes back to life and she's just got like a fresh body. Then this is just like, nope, that was very temporary and you don't get a hold on to those boons. Yeah. Anyway, moving on to the characters section. Pretender as Alexandria. Not a lot to say. We do get just like one little moment of characterization where he thinks that dying Taylor is joking about putting a fly in his mouth. And it's like, you haven't had many conversations with Taylor, but she's never joking about putting a fly in your mouth. The Manton clone, I don't know if he's still under like the use of like the bonesaw switch or whatever, but he works really well with Golem. They, you know, Golem and Cuff and him make a plan and they do the whole thing. And then but Numberman's the first one here who gets some actual stuff to do. He's still very you know, he, despite being the most like calm and collected guy almost always, he finally loses his composure and it's like funny to see in a way. For me, it breaks the tension a little bit, so I really appreciate that. Yeah, when he just goes fuck when the ceiling is collapsing. So that's always a fun moment. Alien says, irrational dislike of that guy, Mr. Digits. Well, that's understandable. He's got like detestable morality when you see from his own perspective. He's just like, you know, kind of a piece of shit. So I can understand that. It's like if Jack did something cool, I would perhaps just be like, fuck you anyway, Jack. Because, you know. But yes, I definitely understand that the Numberman isn't for everybody. And then, yeah, that's mostly what I had to say about him, is the breaking composure thing. Golem. Oh, I didn't mention there's the 5 harbingers, but they're just like probably parkouring around or whatever, and they, I don't know, help ferry around the case 53s who are injured. I'm not sure. I think all of the injured case 53s are knocked out at the moment. So I guess they must just be like Naruto running around the room while carrying case 53 each or something. And then there's Golem. Golem is finally given a perfect moment. He probably did this off screen during the whole like multi-threaded chase sequence of the Slaughterhouse 9 in Arc 26, where he went off on his own adventure without Taylor for a couple chapters. He probably already did like a Taylor plan on what, that mission or whatever, but he takes the role of backup Taylor when Taylor gets knocked out of the fight, and there's that not only the page break, but also the point after she's awake when she can't really be in charge yet. And Cuff, kind of nailing it as always. She's really ever since the time skip, she's professional all the time. Really tough as it goes. Next one is sort of Scion, and I put in / Corpse of Eden. Scion is really like Tattletale had talked about it in previous chapters when they had like those group meetings at the Cauldron headquarters when they were all in their different various groups and trying to hash out plans how they would deal with various Scion attack plans or whatever, or the prior ones with the Endbringers, but it was a Scion one, obviously. And in this Scion one, Tattletale had brought up the idea that Scion is moving through stages of development as though he had like total arrested development for the entire time, from like kind of his only major changes were like the couple things that Kevin Norton gave him as like directives, like save people or whatever, and then like start wearing clothes. He just had like these very, very basic directives, and then like he started developing, for the first time for real, after Jack kind of twisted him, yeah, so given that, we can see Scion's growth where, like, he's displaying, he's taking emotional lash out actions, but he's also displaying his emotions to the capes by, like, powers projecting them into them. And I don't think it's like a conscious thing he's doing. It's like it's just leaking out of him how like devastated and like lost and alone that he is. So they know that it is working because like he's not able to keep up the emotional facade, even though his face, I believe, is still like unchanging as it always was. So he still has like an outward neutral mask, but as in Arc 8, Taylor, she at the time could feel Scion's disgust for Eidolon, but now these more complex emotions of like loss and such. And yeah, that's mostly what I have to say on the character portion of the Scion thing. For Lung, wow, I agree with Vic. It's kind of a roller coaster of a scene when Lung is like, I'm not going to help you, I'm actually going to kill you, and I'm going to take the time to tell you why. Alright, Alien said major overreaction, which I am thinking is in relation to Lung, maybe. Either that or just a pithy joke about Scion having an overreaction emotionally. Yeah, Scion. Okay. Total overreaction. Nothing is wrong for him in his life. Yeah, Lung totally like Lung has been like a sword of Damocles above Taylor for so long, and it kind of felt like a medium betrayal when Shadowstalker left earlier in the arc. Although that was fine. I don't think we would have expected much different. But like it kind of red herringed away from the fact that Lung would be this, remaining obstacle. And yeah, like the fact that he gave a whole speech about how he was going to kill her, and then she just says something so like reckless and metal. He's like, "Fine, I will burn your arm off instead with my rage and like torture you this way. I guess I can accept that, and that is a worse thing that I can do than just killing you." Um, so she gives him an option that sounds juicy to him. Um, really showing that she understands these various people around her in depth. Now, and she was really cautious. She kept Rachel from trying to protect her. Alien says, I think by the end she's so much bigger than any beef with Lung or Shadowstalker. She can just sense it. Yeah. It says B can just sense it, and I'm not sure which word, but I'm going to say we and she can just sense it. Anyway, Rachel, and I'm lumping in Canary because Canary is being ferried around by Huntress and Bastard. Like, I didn't mention it as much, but you know, the dogs were jumping around and bowling through this like giant flesh field, and because it's made of like only flesh level structure, it would like give way immediately because they can like punch through walls normally. And I mean, it must have been just a fucking disgusting mess, if I'm being honest. And Lung was also in his very like medium transformed state, like leaping around and like putting claws into eye holes and stuff. It would be like ghoulish to have like an actual visual of this chapter at all. Like I mean, like the thing that Vic drew, while cool and bizarre and a little gross, is nothing compared to, I think, what would happen if we were forced to see a whole scene of this, like drawn out. But let's see here. Boop boop boop. So, you know what the scene kind of reminds me of now that I'm thinking about it? When they redid Full Metal Alchemist and did Brotherhood, and this might have been in the manga too, it probably was. But there's a scene where they're trapped inside of greed. It's like Edward and Ling, who is not in the original anime. He's a cool character and whatever, but he's just, you know, if you've only seen the original Full Metal Alchemist, he's not even in that series. And then Envy, who can change shape, and Envy, like they're in this like endless blood pool, which is sort of like a similar environment in a way to the like Garden of Flesh. It's like a crazy, like it's anything that this weird like eating demon Gluttony has eaten, and all of it forever has gone into this like dimension of blood and gore and such, and they're just in this weird awful space. And then Envy, who's like a weird shapeshifter who can shapeshift much in the way of like the Eden entity, Envy becomes like a big weird monster that's chasing them around for a bit, that is kind of reminiscent of the like Rachel's dogs bowling through the field of flesh. I don't know. It's just all coming together in my mind, and I've never thought about that connection before. So that is fun and gross. You know, sometimes parahumans is gross. And then we've got sort of Rachel's demeanor, moving on from the dogs. Canary doesn't get a spot. Her hand was crushed or whatever, but it will be healed by a healer later, I feel certain. I don't know if it will be Amy or who. It probably happens off screen, but Canary, you're going to be fine. And then Rachel, she's very, like, sure of Taylor's judgment, even after, like, Lung did something that seems, like, out of pocket, like burning her whole arm. Taylor, like, wakes up, tells her it's fine, and then Rachel takes it as good, like, on one, like, go. And then, like, when Aisha is, like, kind of ribbing Taylor and being like, you normally do the plans, then, I pulled out while I was reading it, Rachel's just like, she's hurt. And, like, that's enough. Whereas, like, obviously in the first portions of the book, there was, like, such a rocky relationship and it took so long to forge. So, like, that kind of, like, camaraderie. When we saw how she handled it when Neuter was hurt, where she was like, leave him behind, let him die. Anyway. And then Aisha, she's just being Aisha. She doesn't really use her power at any time. Like, there's no reason for her to. So she just, like, gets to be in the full scene, like, a lot. And, when she gets that wave of negative emotion... Oh, I forgot to say in this part, like, obviously Rachel has that moment when there's the waves of negative emotions where she thinks of losing her 3 dogs, Rollo, Brutus, and Judas, and then Aisha, like, alludes to losing Brian, which Taylor does not pick up on. But mostly, Aisha really keeps it together and keeps other people sort of on track despite her usual joking self. Sveta, like I already said earlier, I love the interactions between Taylor and Sveta, how they sort of, like, I would imagine each have, like, a higher estimation of the other after they work together for that final ploy, and then Sveta's able to escape with Taylor's bug help. They had a moment. I thought it was really good. I liked it. I think that on first pass on reading Worm, like, obviously, like, Sveta's sympathetic in the other scenes, but this was the one where I was like, okay, I really like Sveta, and it's, like, cemented for me. There's a difference between, like, liking a character on a level and then, like, kind of setting it in place and really feeling it. And then Taylor, obviously we've talked about it the whole time. She was so injured that she was all over the place. She's just like, she has technically been more injured when she was torn in half by Scion's, like, light. But this is the second worst state she's ever been in, I think. Oh, actually, Leviathan broke her back and she was paralyzed below the waist. This is the third worst she's ever been, okay? Wow. Taylor's had a lot of close scrapes, hasn't she? Yeah, she's going through the ringer and she just pushes through anyway. I think that despite how grim Taylor's prospects look, she's just, like, never gives up. And you know what? She rules. It's very like, I don't know, just heroic feeling, at least. It's one of those things that even when it's bad, you just kind of want to get behind it. I mean, maybe not everybody, but me. I'm like, yes, fight. Do not go quietly into that good night, Taylor. Yeah, I don't know. She rules. Into Power's knowledge and world building. what can I say? I really think I did highlight it as we passed through. This is just like kind of a mind-blowing section when you're first reading it, I think, where like you're really getting the scope of things. Like even Number Man like describes that he didn't know about this until recently. So, like, it's a surprise to everyone. And it's just like it lines up so well with other things we've seen, like Labyrinth and different people who can change shape and like emotional manipulation powers, and like it's so like perfectly formed in the middle of this like forge that is the whole story, and then it getting crunched by 1.7 million words. I mean, tons of steel. Anyway, yeah, it's great. We learn so many things. We see this like four-dimensional being for what it is, and it really it nicely slow walks us into it to hopefully make it so that everyone can understand, even on first pass, like, you know, Taylor's dawning understanding becomes theirs. Hopefully. All right, so I think I'm gonna just skip past the other stuff. I know there's a lot of really cool details, like expanses of skin, veins, muscle, and bone. But if you want to read word for word what happens, you can read the chapter. It's all very cool. I love it. But the like very last minute, didn't even think of it till I was going, audience participation is kind of, given that this scene worked for me. Did this scene work for you? First pass? Was it understandable? Was it whatever? And I don't know, Alien, if you are still there, if you want to like give an answer. If not, I will just move on to the end. But if anyone's ever following this years later and comes upon this, feel free to comment. I'm always interested if somebody had an answer, and even if it was much later, I would probably read it in the actual show once I noticed the comment. Any other last minute things I want to say? I'm trying to hopefully stream at least once a week coming up. If it's possible, I want to stream more than once a week, but I just don't want to. I just don't know what schedules will look like, and then yeah, I really want to get back into it, push to the end of Worm. And then, if you're listening to this in sequence later, you'll definitely remember, like, I've been talking about how we're going to go into Ward, and we're going to just keep going through that. But Victoria is going to hopefully join as a second every chapter host, and then it'll be a lot more like the interlude chapters, which I think are frankly a lot better shows. So hopefully we can give people a better product if that goes through. And then we would have less art. We would only have like perhaps an arc art instead of a chapter art. So far less art, but we're trading that off for a much better overall experience if you're listening to the audio. So it was what made sense to us. But anyway, it seems like no one's left in the chat, and I am talking to myself. Perhaps someone someday will hear this. Perhaps not. Thank you, anyone who got this far. I'm gonna, start the outro. As always, we've got this music coming to us from ScarlettXOX. This track is still Extinction. You can find her work at twitch.tv/Scarlett_Rogue. Our Discord server link, as well as the other links, can be found in the channel and stream description. The author of the work being discussed can be supported on Patreon at patreon.com/Wildbow. The full text of the work is available for free online at parahumans.wordpress.com. And there's also a fan-made audiobook of the entire work. The first one that was completed at audioworm.rain-online.org, and another that's more recent by abaddonproductions.org. Yeah.